Yes.
Good.
Sure
Any,
good.
any prayer concerns we have for anybody or anything?
Well, Harry's
For
having,
everybody.
Huh? Everybody? Yes.
Harry's having endoscopic and a colonoscopy on Tuesday.
Well, that's no fun.
No,
Monday's
Ain't no
the day
fun.
that's really not fun though.
that's the
You're right.
endoscopic.
Yeah, well, we'll say our prayers for you. Are you maybe in the hospital or
Yes.
outpatient?
Exact disease.
But they're doing them both at the same time.
They did that to Patrick one time.
Did they?
So, yeah.
Like who?
An endoscopic.
They're gonna go both directions.
Yeah.
All right, moving right along.
We'll see what's in there. Look into both directions, see what's in the middle.
That's right.
Harry.
Thank you, Doug. All right, so today our Sunday school lesson is going to be on the Green Chalice program. And the reason why we're, do we say taping anymore? We don't. Filming, maybe we should say. There's no film either. Anyway, we're making a recording of this because I took a class in June at the seminary. It was called Disciples, History, and Polity. And I already did my history paper. I did Walter Scott, who really helped to get the denomination started. He kind of pulled the Campbell people and the Stone people together, and he made it really easy for people to understand what was going on there. And then today I'm doing the polity. That's a hard word for me. The polity portion, which is, I didn't know what the word polity was, but it's how an organization is put together. How many departments you have, or how many people you have working for the organization. You just have to make sure you don't block the camera. Maybe this chair. So, anyway, our task was to choose one of the smaller units within the Disciples Church and to do a little program on one of those smaller units. And the Green Chalice program is important to us because we want to be good stewards of God's creation. And also, we can set a good example for people who are unchurched, that we're taking good care of God's creation. And we're not just, being tree huggers to be tree huggers, but we are doing it because of our faith and our spirituality. Mark, just make sure you don't block on the camera.
So you might-
There we go. But you are welcome. You are
We
welcome.
want you in here. We
Yes.
just don't want you block. Sit right
There
there.
we go.
Well, you can sit back there.
All righty. So I'm going to give you a little bit of background first. Our roots, as I mentioned, go back to the Stone Campbell movement. And it was actually Barton Stone who wanted us to be called Christians. He just wanted it to be Christian church. And then Campbell wanted us to be disciples of Christ. And so you will see on all the churches and the disciples that it'll be like Westport Road Christian Church, and then in parentheses it'll be disciples of Christ, because they didn't want to leave anybody out. And they're part of what was called the Restoration Movement, and some people will even call it the American Restoration Movement, which took place on the frontier of the United States back in the 1800s. And right here where we are was part of the frontier at that point in time. And the founding of the disciples was at Cane Ridge near Paris, Kentucky. So we have a lot of history in this close area. Now, some of the ideas of the Restoration Movement were that the church should get back to be more like the church in the New Testament, and that it was also a unity movement, trying to pull everybody together, so you weren't having the Baptist fight with the Presbyterians who were fighting with the Lutherans and that thing. It would just be one big church. And rather than having denominations, we would just all be called Christians. And some of the beliefs of the movement were that Jesus is the Son of God, which we say that every time we worship together. Also, having the Lord's Supper on Sunday. I have a friend who even says that we are communionaholics because we will take communion at the drop of a hat. And also baptism of adult believers by immersion. So you can see right there that's some controversial things, because Not every denomination is going to have the Lord's Supper every Sunday, and a lot of places have really strict rules about who can and who cannot take communion, and we always say the table is open to everyone. And then the whole idea of sprinkling babies versus adult immersion, that's also something that can cause a lot of conflict for a lot of different people. Even though we all are Christians, we have some pretty strong beliefs, usually because of the way we were brought up.
Has the open communion from the start been practiced?
Uh-huh.
I didn't know that.
Yep. And then, of course, our symbol is the chalice, which is a symbol for communion.
Camera.
Now, let's just scooch that
No,
chair a
sit
little bit closer to Barbara. And welcome.
No.
You're good.
You're all right.
We're filming this morning, so
No.
we just didn't want you to block off the camera.
The camera's behind you.
Oh,
Sit.
You're okay
You're
with it?
fine, you're fine.
Well, even though the Stone Campbell movement, the whole idea about, and one of the big ideas was unity, that we weren't very good at unity, which, obviously, because everybody has deep opinions about different things. So some of our sister churches that broke off from the Stone Campbell movement, one was the Church of Christ. My neighbors across the street from me go to a Church of Christ, and they're the a cappella group that doesn't have musical instruments. And then there's the United Church of Christ, which is very similar to us, but I think they only have communion once a month, if I remember right. But a lot of the things they do are very similar. In fact, the service we do on Friday nights out of the prison is a combination of UCC and DFC. And then the independent Christian churches, most of them, the ones that are not affiliated with a denomination, a lot of them come from the Stone Campbell movement also. And then there are international churches of Christ that come from the same movement. So there was some tension and some stress that caused these splits. And one of the big things was, were we going to be ecumenical or were we going to be restorationists? And the DOC decided to go ecumenical. And what that means is that we respect other religions and we look for ways where we can work together. And EACM is a great example of that. That instead of having every little church have its own food pantry and its own school supply drive, when we come together, then people who are in need know where to go, and it doesn't put a big burden on any one particular church. So that would be an example of being ecumenical. And then if we were being, go back to restoration, we would take the name off of every church and it would just be Christian church. Okay? Welcome, Mary Kay.
thank you.
Something I learned was that in 1969, up until 1969, we were called a movement. We weren't called a denomination. And at the General Assembly in 1969 in Kansas City, we officially became a denomination. Now, there's still some controversy over this because many people feel that a denomination is very static, and also it becomes very bureaucratic. Whereas a movement shows that you are, changing and you're nimble, dynamic, and you're getting more stuff done. At least that's what a lot of people say. Now, our identity statement that you can find on the web says, "We are disciples of Christ, a movement for wholeness in a fragmented world. As part of the one body of Christ, we welcome all to the Lord's table as God has welcomed us." So, in our identity statement, we don't say we're a denomination today. We say we're a movement. We're very, very congregational centered, which is different than some of our brothers and sister churches. We call our own ministers. We set our own budget. We own our own buildings, things like our rent in our case. Whereas a lot of the other ones, like the big central headquarters owns the building and they choose the minister. I have friends who are Methodist and they get a new minister every 3 years and they really don't have any say in it. The bishop just says this minister is going there. I think it'd be tough to be a minister too because you'd have to move your family every 3 years to someplace. So So we're still very, very congregationally oriented. So the way we're set up, you can kind of think of it as kind of like a target or a bullseye where you have a center circle and then you have circles going out. And so the center circle for the disciples is going to be General Assembly. Now the idea behind General Assembly is that every church sends delegates and they vote on important issues. What has happened over time though is it's kind of become a rubber stamp, that a lot of stuff is decided ahead of time because they don't want a lot of controversy at General Assembly. So that is supposed to be the core. The other thing we found is a lot of churches cannot afford to send somebody to General Assembly. It costs about $1,000 to go by the time you count transportation and a hotel room and food and registration and all that kind of stuff. And a lot of churches feel like they can spend that $1,000 in a better way. So we're seeing fewer churches sending delegates too. So that's supposed to be our core. And then the next circle is the administrative committee. And then the the next one was the general board over the whole church. Then the administrative committee. And then the outer ring is made up of divisions and organizations. And they're kind of like satellites kind of going around the other units within the church. Now the biggest one of those is called Disciples Home Missions, and they have a lot of units under them. And Disciples Home Missions has their own board, and they also have to report to General Assembly, and they report to the General Minister too. Just to give you some examples of some of the other ones, though, we have the Christian Board of Publications, which is also known as the Chalice Press. We have the Disciples Women, Disciples of Christ Historical Society, and the list goes on and on. I was going to make copies of this for everybody, but I decided since we're talking about being kind to the environment, that it'd probably be a good idea not to make a bunch of copies. So I will be happy to make you a copy if you want a copy later on, or there's also, all this stuff is on the website also, if you just want to look it up on the website. So, finally we get to the Green Chalice Program. The Green Chalice Program is underneath the Disciples Home Missions. And the purpose of the Green Chalice Program is to encourage and assist local congregations, DOC offices, and assemblies who wish to live out their faith by caring for creation. This program is designed to recognize congregations for being good stewards of God's creation. It also aims to empower congregations with ideas and resources to enable them to walk gently on the earth. And there's the person who heads up the Green Chalice Program. Her name is Carol Devine. And I knew Carol because she used to volunteer out of the prison. And she is a lovely woman. She is the senior minister at Providence Christian Church in Nicholasville. So she's not very far away from us at all, and a good person to work with. Now, when we look at the Green Chalice Program, there's 2 tiers. And the first tier is just becoming a Green Chalice church or Green Chalice congregation.
Are we one?
No, we're not.
Why?
Well, because I think a
red
lot.
brick instead of green.
Well, that's one thing that we can talk about is do we want to do these 3 steps, because they're pretty easy to do.
What is holding us back?
Huh?
Why is it?
I think a lot of people just don't know about it. How many of you knew about Green Chalice before?
No, why is it called Green Chalice?
Well, the chalice is, our symbol,
I know.
okay? And then green is just because, anything related to the environment, we always call it green.
Oh.
Chalice is supposed to be gold, maybe it's corroded, turned green.
Oh, well, that could be too. It could be.
Polish.
Yes. So anyway, there's 2 levels then. There's the first level where you just, as a congregation, you decide you're going to be a Green Chalice congregation. And then there's a second level where you can become a certified Green Chalice congregation. Now let me tell you first about the 3 steps that we would need to do to become a Green Chalice church. First of all, we need to form a green team. So we need somebody who would really, be a great leader, like Harry maybe, who could lead the green team. Okay? And the green team then is, they're gonna read the covenant and sign the covenant. And the covenant is pretty basic. It says, as children of God and followers of Christ Jesus, we covenant to worship God with all creation and pray for the healing of the earth, study the climate crisis and engage others in climate solutions, repent and forgive for the harm we have inflicted on the earth that sustains life, advocate for eco-justice, public policies, and witness by living sustainable lifestyles, and rest in God's good creation and invite others to delight in nature. So that the team itself would then decide, okay, we're going to go forward with this, we believe in this covenant, and then they would all sign it and send it off to Carol. LTS is a Green Chalice Seminary, and in January, we always have, we do a chapel service right before lunch every day that we're at the seminary. And one of the days in January, their green team put on the worship service. And at the end of the worship service, everybody who was present for worship that day signed the covenant. So I got to sign the covenant for LTS. All right, so step 1, green team. Step 2, sign the covenant. Step 3 is you have to make 3 changes. And these are really easy changes. Let me give you some examples. Get an energy audit. You know, LG&E will come in and do an energy audit for free. And probably we'd have to partner with Pitt if we were going to do that. We could start or enhance a recycling program. This one will be hard for us. Use real dishes. I think we've given away all of our real dishes. Stop using styrofoam and disposable dishes. We could change to energy efficient light bulbs. Let's see, put in programmable thermostats, start a community garden, serve local foods as much as possible when we eat together. We can participate in the Disciples Coffee Program, which is a program where they get coffee from farmers who get paid a living wage and also are good to the earth as they grow the coffee. This is one I was surprised at is we could purchase eco palms from Palm Sunday. I didn't know there were eco palms out there, or that non-eco palms were bad for the environment. But that would be very easy to say, okay, one of our 3 changes is we're just going to get eco palms. Yes.
There's a great deal in there about environment, which I agree with.
Yeah.
But what part of it and where does the church come in?
That's what I,
These
What
are-
we doing?
well, these are the
Excuse me. What are we doing to entice people, Christians, to be more involved with the church?
People who are already members of the church, or people who are
Either or.
outside the church?
Either or.
Okay.
What are we doing bluntly to try, not only this church, but
Right.
many churches,
Mhm.
to maintain the membership that's present?
Mhm.
Because in history now tells us Christianity in the United States of America is decreasing.
Yes.
It's been decreasing over the last few years.
Yeah, it's about the last
Yeah.
50 years it's been
I
going
would
down.
disagree with
Yeah.
that. But the thing that I'm more interested in the environment,
Uh-huh.
no doubt. But what are we going to do? Not only our church, but all churches.
Right, and that is being discussed over and over. The latest article that I read that made sense to me was too many churches have gotten away from actually worshiping. That it's become more like a country club where you go and see your friends for an hour, or it's a place for the kids to play together or something like that. But a lot of churches have lost that central worship, and then they said, well, if we got better at really worshiping God, then people would more likely bring in their friends and neighbors and that sort of thing.
Another question about it, and being an ex-Catholic, I know that Catholic churches have a great deal of problem getting priests.
Yes.
I also know that all other religions, be you Jewish, whatever, are also having a tough time getting people,
To go into ministry.
whatever you want to describe it as. And that's going to grow to be a
Right.
bigger problem as time progresses.
Well,
I think, a good part of the church, or any church, ought to be to try to entice young people to get into religion, so they're brought up in religion and understand the importance of praying to Almighty God. And that part of the family has decreased increase too.
Oh, yes, yes. In terms of the religious leaders, because membership is down, that means church budgets are down. So a lot of churches can't afford a full-time minister anymore. Well, the minister still needs to eat and pay rent or, mortgage or whatever. And so that is discouraging a lot of people from going into it. And we're seeing more and more women go into ministry because often what happens in a male-dominated world, when salaries start to go down, then fewer men are interested in taking those jobs and there's more women. But then there's a lot of churches that won't hire a woman because they believe that ministers should be men. So it's a really complicated problem. I agree. I think also we've got to figure out a way. I agree about young people, especially maybe right after they get out of college, because most people will stray from the church when they're like college age. But I don't think they want to sing the old hymns that we sing, and maybe they don't want to get up early on Saturday. I know when I was in graduate school, I went to a Methodist church at 5 o'clock on Sunday night. And it was a great way to end my weekend. I didn't have to get up early on Sunday morning. And it was made up of people in their 20s and 30s. And I think we need to look at more things like that too.
I think going back, still the most important thing is when you're young, bringing up young children, say 5, 6, whenever they're able to read and have some reasonable thought. You should start working at Christianity right then and there.
Oh, I agree.
And all as they grow up.
Yeah, I mean, and that's how I was raised, and probably how most of us in this room were raised, that we went to church every week, and we went to Sunday school every week, and vacation Bible school, and camp, and all that.
Grow our
And,
kids up.
huh?
And grow our kids up.
Right. But now, I drive by that soccer field on my way here every Sunday morning, and it's full of kids playing soccer. And so part of it is a societal thing too, that there's all this other stuff competing with church, and there used to not be that competition. Right. But that's a really good point, Harry. Really good point. Well, let's finish up on talking about what we can do about green chalice, and then we can talk about some other topics too. So anyway, 3 things we have to do. We have to have a green team. We have to sign the covenant, and then just make 3 changes, which is pretty easy. Then if we decided we wanted to move on to be a certified green chalice church, then what we want to do is we have to contact Carol, let her know that we want to be certified. And what we do then is we come up with some sustainable long-term programs. Like we could make a commitment that we're always going to do a service saver Earth Day, or we're always going to do the eco homes or whatever. But we have our green team come up with a strategy about how we can go forward and not just make this, we changed the light bulbs one time kind of thing. There's a lot of good ideas for that are on the website. And so once we would have a strategy, then we'd implement the strategy, then we would assess it and see what's working and what's not working. Then we can become a certified Green Chalice congregation. And you have the certification for 3 years, and then you have to reapply at the end of every 3 years. Now, you may be wondering, okay, we haven't really heard about this before. It's still a very new program. In fact, as of June 27th of this year, there were 163 Green Chalice congregations, and then out of those 163, there were only 10 that were certified Green Chalice congregations. So it's still really, really new.
It's everywhere or Kentucky?
Everywhere. In fact, there's a church in Hawaii they've just really jumped on this. 2 congregations have committed to going carbon neutral. And one of those is a church in Hawaii. I think that one would be a little hard for us to do. Because one of the things they said to do that is put up a bicycle rack so people could ride their bicycles to church. I don't think we're a bicycle riding crowd,
I think this is all a laudable thought, but I don't think it's for the church.
I couldn't hear you, though.
Pardon?
I didn't hear.
I think the idea of the green is good to a certain extent, but I don't think it's a church.
No.
I don't think it's the problem. I think that's the reason why the churches are losing people. Because we're getting more social, economic issues than
Yeah, yeah.
Christ-centered church. That's my opinion.
Well, and I think we have to have priorities too.
Yeah.
And for some churches, this might be their priority. And for other churches, their priority might be doing something totally different.
Whatever
So,
they want.
yeah. Well, I mean, we look at that organization chart, for the satellites that are circling the whole thing. There's way too many of those. And the church as a whole, I think we need to reprioritize. And like Harry said, we've got to do something about maintaining membership and increasing membership.
And teaching personal relationships with God, I think.
Yes, yes.
The spiritual aspect.
Yes, yes.
Teaching what is Christianity.
Exactly.
That's the whole reason for it.
Mhm. Why come here as opposed to going to a mosque or a synagogue or whatever?
It all comes down to the same thing.
Yes.
Whether you believe in Almighty God and Jesus or you don't. And more emphasis has to be, in my opinion, has to be put on that.
Mhm.
And if you honestly believe in both God and Jesus, then you don't have a problem with being a Christian.
Right.
But if you don't have it in your heart, then you got a problem. You have a problem. And I think that's another part of the church. More emphasis got to be put on that.
Right.
Where in my life do I stand in that?
Mhm.
Where am I at? And you have to have enough guts to look in the mirror
Oh, yes.
and
yes.
say, I do believe in Almighty God,
Mhm.
and I know when I pray, He's with me.
Yes, yes. And of course, we do want to take care of God's creation. It's not going to be the focus. The focus is going to be on our faith and all the good things that God and Jesus have done for us, and Holy Spirit. But,
I feel hypocritical in saying this with this cup.
yeah.
What about the good?
There's nothing else to be on.
That's it.
Definitely garbage.
So it's society, I think, that has taken us here. And I mean, I don't want to destroy God's earth. I know the waters
Mhm.
are having so much plastic in them or something that
Right.
something isn't doing right. I see that as something that we should try to do, but it still goes back to our heart and our relationship with God. And I don't know how to clean all this up.
Oh,
I
no.
accept.
I just think if we all took some small steps, it would add up over time. But we also know that a lot of our pollution is caused by big industry and a whole lot of our problem with global warming is cows who have gas. And and if we just all cut back and had, maybe we had, like in New Orleans, they do Meatless Monday. And they started that tradition because they had a lot of meat on the weekend and it was a budget kind of thing. But if we would all just say, okay, one day a week we're not getting any meat, then there would be, fewer cattle out there expelling their gas.
That's a misconception,
Okay.
because 300 years ago, there was twice as many of those animals, same output.
Mhm.
In buffalo, deer, elk,
Mhm.
whatever. There were twice as many of those as there is now as
Okay.
cattle. So
They claim right
that's
now
a-
you put
that's a-
cows on property
that's a whole
and renew the land.
Yeah,
You put cows on the property.
yeah.
Talk about this gas,
Huh?
the nutrients that come from those cattle goes right into the soil.
Yeah.
And that absorbs the gas.
Yeah,
That's all.
so that
Yes.
is some
And I
idea
think
put
that
out by somebody who wants to ignore their production
Oh,
of
yeah,
gas.
yeah. And everybody's pointing the finger at everybody
Yeah.
else.
Well, it's not enough not agreeing with Dick. There's not enough studies about it. And I agree with him, there's somebody, so this sounds great, we're gonna get rid of, all
Right.
the meat. What are we gonna do from milk? We're gonna get rid of that too?
Right,
Right. You gotta think about what you're saying, but I agree
Right.
with him.
Right.
The difference is, right here,
Uh-huh.
200 years ago, there were trees,
Mhm.
nothing else. You could walk around under the trees because there wasn't any grass.
Mhm.
in that shade. And there was trees from here all the way to West Virginia, solid trees. And trees convert carbon dioxide,
Right.
absorb the carbon to grow and put out the oxygen.
Mhm.
Now, the trees aren't doing it because they aren't here. We
Right.
have grass, and it only does about 2% of what a tree would do.
And then we put chemicals on it.
Yeah,
Yeah, and everything, then they end up going into the river and,
We've destroyed ourselves,
well, yeah.
but
and it's
I
a
can see your
huge
program
problem.
as one thing, and
Mhm.
like you say, other subjects, is we just, it's kind of separate from, God, I guess. I don't mean it is, because we've destroyed it, but I mean, the main thing is our relationship with God.
Mhm.
And we can't help it that the world is, it's almost a prediction to some degree, that we're gonna collapse ourselves out of greed
We
and
probably, yeah.
not being close to
ultimately-
God in the first place.
Yeah,
So,
so,
I don't know what I'm talking about.
oh, it's fine, it's fine. I mean, and even, you know, when I started this, I knew there were gonna be some people go, oh, wow, that's a great idea, and other people go, no, that's a terrible idea. So, and if it is something, I think, for all of the programs that the general church has, we need to think, do we want to participate or do we not want to participate in the various programs of the
And I
general
think as you're
church?
presenting it, you're not saying, this is how we, this is
Oh, no,
God.
I'm
You're
just-
saying,
this is just
how
for
we
awareness.
help the earth, and we are responsible.
Right, right. So we just want to, I just want to make sure everybody's aware that this is one of the programs. There are tons of other programs out there. But we have been pretty distant from Indianapolis for a while. And there might be something that we're all excited about doing. There's some good, you know, Bible studies on there and things like that that we're not taking advantage of too. Okay. So anyway, if we would decide to do Green Chalice, then there's all kinds of resources out there on the website. And just so you know what the Green Chalice looks like, it looks much better from a distance than up close. But here's the little symbol. And then if somebody decides they're going to organize a green team, it's supposed to be somebody who's excited in the congregation. It's not supposed to be led by the ministers. So, questions? Anybody have questions?
Does the church have to vote on this?
I don't know.
You just have to have a
What I'm
green team,
thinking,
and the green team signs the covenant. But I would,
I understand that. My question is the entire congregation have to vote whether they want to be?
they don't have to vote, no. But I would think that it should go to the council that meets, you know, quarterly, and then the council would probably vote at the next congregational meeting to take it to the congregation. But that's just a prediction. They might say, oh, it's a great idea, and Harry's gonna run with it, or Jeannie's gonna run with it, or whatever. Very vague. So yeah, it does not require a congregational vote, but our local congregation could decide to have a congregational vote. Very vague.
Yeah, last week I was at music camp,
Uh-huh,
and they have the coffee and the chocolate,
uh-huh.
and they just have it on display, and you, if you want to take some home, you can buy it.
Yeah, they had that at seminary in June.
You could do
The
that
chocolate
even if you
was really
didn't,
good, yes.
even if you didn't do the green chalice. you
Exactly,
could,
exactly.
but it takes money and fuel to get the coffee from there to here for us to use it.
This is true, this is true.
Well, any coffee.
But
Trucks, big trucks put out more pollution than my little car does.
But
Oh, yeah.
Because I have a catalytic converter on it,
Right.
and the trucks don't.
the deal with.
But no matter what kind of coffee we get, it would be on the truck at some point in time.
Yeah.
Right, but the farmer who grows the coffee gets a fair price for it. That's the
Yeah.
emphasis
Mhm.
for that.
It
And
just-
I'm not for for cleaning up all the
Fair humanity.
coffees and washing the cups and everything, I just soon throw them
No.
away.
There you go.
Right.
I don't care about doing that.
And that's fine. That's fine. You don't have to do that. And like I said, we got rid of all of our
We
dishes.
did. We did.
So, but, there's some good paper cups out there. Maybe next time we could think about buying a paper cup as opposed
Remember
to.
the one with the little handles that folded out?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't
Or we
remember.
could just say we wanted, just not do it at all. So, but I just wanted to make sure everybody, kind of knew a little bit about the program, and you can go online and look at all those other programs that
Well,
Indianapolis
you've
has.
introduced this to.
Yeah.
I think awareness, just brought down awareness to some people.
Yeah. Right.
I didn't even know there was.
And there's a whole bunch of other programs out there that I, really wasn't aware of. And I've been in the Disciples my whole life. And I'm just like, oh, here I am, this age and going to seminary, and I'm just now finding out about these things. So I don't think we do a very good job at educating our congregations about all the different programs that are out there.
I think as individual members of the church, we can start at home, no paper plates and no paper cups
Yeah.
and recycle and all that
Mhm.
sort of thing.
Mhm.
If- Even if we don't have it at church, we can do it at home.
Right.
At least.
Right. And we're already doing some recycling, like bringing in the cans for Habitat for Humanity and the lids. Yeah, in fact, I spent all day Friday dropping off stuff. And we've got, we had the big tub of the pull tabs. They said at the Ronald McDonald House it was the most they'd ever seen. And yeah, so that was good. And dropped off the lids, and we dropped off stuff at EACM. So we already do a lot of things. Oh, and one of the
Technology brought us all this stuff.
Yes.
oh yeah,
Technology will take us away from.
yeah,
tax.
yeah, yeah.
I mean, we're just in an interim
We are. We
in
are.
our journey through life. I mean,
And like-
Especially when they see the harm.
Some communities have outlawed plastic straws. Some have outlawed styrofoam, and
Styrofoam.
different.
Is that okay, styrofoam?
No, it's not good.
See, and we always
It
get those
doesn't-
little things when we eat and drink.
Right.
Same goes true with, like,
Plastic.
he just mentioned, same thing goes true with environment. It's a matter of educating people and getting the people to understand what is the real threat to the environment.
Right.
And that's not an easy thing to do,
No.
because people that use the styrofoam cups, straws, as long as I can remember,
Oh yeah.
now all of a sudden you're telling them, oh, that's out, that's no good.
Right.
And you gotta convince the individual.
Would they be happy if we went back to paper, where we've gone to plastic, we went back to like paper straws and paper cups?
Right.
I
Right.
think they are going.
In fact, when I was in Lexington, a couple of restaurants we went to, they had paper straws as opposed to plastic straws.
Well, in California, they'll find you if they catch you with plastic straws
Yeah.
in restaurants.
Exactly. Yeah.
They find it.
Uh-huh.
And I think New Jersey too today.
And then there's some places where people are like carrying around like their own reusable straws. Kind of like a water bottle, but you carry around a straw for wherever you're gonna be.
How about carry your old coffee cup when you go get
Right,
something?
right. Well, I have been at
Take your own
churches.
wash it.
That's
I've been
coming
at churches where everybody brings
I'll bring
in a
my
coffee
coffee
cup
next
and
time.
you hang it on the wall.
Well,
and
change
stuff
your
like that.
attitude.
It's time to get ready for worship, and I just want to say thank you so much for being here.
Oh,
And be
thank
sure
you.
to get some muffins, and I'll see you in worship.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Very good. Thanks.
You have to cut off the camera.
She didn't mention our big program here.
Turn it
Farmers
down.
market every
Yes, the farmer's market, we're doing the farmer's market. Alrighty.
Tuesday. How you doing?
Nelda, how are you this morning?
Woke up this morning, said, hey,
I'm